I think growing up, I had a typical American diet, a lot of meat and potatoes. Well, it's a cliche, but we are what we eat. Whatever we put into our body becomes. Sometimes when we follow a diet that's more vegetarian, we leave out some of the nutrients and we eat too much sugar and we don't maybe have enough calcium. And that's how I found the macrobiotic diet. I looked at other vegetarian possibilities, but didn't see real good results. But the macrobiotic diet does help with those issues because we do eat a lot of beans and whole grains and vegetables. It's a wonderful way to get your nutrients.
Who among us would not want to live each day in a state of consciousness that is totally joyful and fearless? And surely we'd all prefer to live our lives with absolute freedom from disease. These are some of the goals of macrobiotics, a way of life that includes an unusual approach to food selection. Macrobiotic practitioners strive to live in harmony with their environment, believing that their lifestyle is not only the way to a healthy body, but also to a peaceful world. That certainly sounds good in theory, but does the macrobiotic lifestyle actually deliver the goods? Those who have adopted the macrobiotic way of life and stuck to it seem to be a remarkably committed lot. But just exactly what is it about this seemingly Spartan way of eating that attracts and retains so many loyal followers? Enthusiasts of the macrobiotic lifestyle believe that the quality of the food we eat has a powerful effect on health, well-being and happiness. But that's not all.
If you break the word up, macro is the biggest view. Biotic is life. And to George Osawa, macrobiotics is really the biggest view of life. Your lifestyle, your food, how you work in the world, what you need, what climate you live in, all of it has to be taken into account. And when you apply that, then you can create what goals and dreams that you have.
I like to say there's no such thing as macrobiotic food, but there are some principles that are extolled within this discipline we call macrobiotics. And when those principles are used as regards to food, then you can say, well, we're doing this macrobiotically. Only to say that we're doing the common sense thing that's going to give us health and freedom from disease.
Enthusiasts of macrobiotics quite literally believe in the old adage, bloom where you're planted. They feel that eating foods raised in a climatic region other than our own upsets our internal balance and weakens our ability to fight illness. Those who practice macrobiotics are extremely particular about food selection and preparation. The macrobiotic movement favours unprocessed and locally grown organic food. Supporters encourage the practice of eating foods produced within a 200-mile radius of their own homes.
And from a macro point of view, if you're supporting local agriculture, local farmers, it's easier on the environment. You're not using gas to truck things across. You're not packaging things and creating waste in that way. So it's more ecological, it's more humanitarian, and it's better for your body.
In fact, before we had industrialization, everybody was living a macrobiotic lifestyle. They couldn't help it because that was their whole environment. It's industrialization that's disconnected us from the natural order of the earth.
The reasoning behind macrobiotics is keeping the whole system in balance, and that's the theory about yin and yang. And when your whole body is in balance, then that's a healthy soul and a healthy body. But as soon as that balance is a little off, that's when any kind of disease, whether it's cancer or heart disease or even depression, any of those can manifest.
In temperate climates like the United States, the macrobiotic diner chooses foods carefully, with an eye toward boosting energy levels and bolstering immunity.
In this country where we are, basic, fresh, whole grains, some cracked grains, vegetables, sea vegetables, some supplemental meat depending on who you are and what you need, but the basics like that. And then the principles are still the same. Is a food acidifying or alkalizing? Is it warming or cooling? Does it cause you to open up and relax, or does it cause you to focus?
Enthusiasts believe that foods should be eaten in the same season in which they grow naturally. They also believe that food selection and preparation should be tailored specifically to each individual.
It's a lot more flexible than people realize because you take into account all aspects of the earth and the location where you are, the climate, your ancestry, the health, your constitution. So all that gets factored in and is part of the macrobiotics lifestyle.
Macrobiotic practitioners frown on heavy consumption of meat, poultry and dairy products. They defend this view by pointing out that humans have only 4 canine teeth to shred flesh foods. Our remaining molars and incisors are best suited for grains and vegetable matter. The macrobiotic diet, as outlined by Michio Kushi, a key promoter of macrobiotics in the United States, combines whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, seaweed, fermented soy foods, nuts and seeds, a little fish, and additional plant-based foods, according to the universal principle of yin and yang. Yin represents the female polarity, yang the male. Both help attain a dynamic equilibrium in a universe of constant change. The founders of macrobiotics studied the growing seasons and attributes of a wide variety of foods and classified them as either yin or yang. They concluded that vegetables are more yin than animals.
So we'll start with a scoop of rice.
Creating a balanced macrobiotic menu is much more complex than ensuring appropriate vitamin and mineral content. Extremely yang foods like eggs or beef and extremely yin foods like cream and chocolate are usually avoided. Menus are most frequently prepared from foods that fall into the moderate yin and yang categories, but there is a lot of leeway in the choices. Most of us know, or at least aspire to know, what it means to live large. But do we truly know the path to a great life? Those who embrace macrobiotic diets and lifestyles claim to be on the right track. Although the term macrobiotics is associated with Asian origins today, if you dig a little bit deeper, it seems to actually have Greek roots. Macro meaning great, bios meaning life. But it's actually in another part of Europe, where the seeds of this unique philosophy were first sown.
It really became his quest.
George Osawa called it his number 7 diet, the highest diet.
In 1796, a German physician called Christopher Huffeland published a book entitled Macrobiotic, The Art of Prolonging Human Life. Huffeland was quite famous in his day, as his father was court physician to the Grand Duchess. Huffeland's approach to healing was out of sync with the mainstream medical establishment of his day. He insisted on viewing each patient as a whole person who deserved a personalized approach.
And his mission almost was to find that sweet spot in the middle where a species could thrive and have maximum longevity based on their physiological condition.
Huffeland's theories would later exert a powerful influence on Yukikazu Sakurazawa, the Japanese writer, pacifist and philosopher who is credited with popularizing the macrobiotic lifestyle. The intellectually gifted Sakurazawa was born in Kyoto, Japan in 1893, nearly 100 years after Huffeland published his theories on macrobiotic philosophy. Although he was born into a family of the samurai class, or military nobility, he was unfortunately destined to an unhappy youth marked by illness, abject poverty and personal loss. Young Yukikazu Sakurazawa endured a traumatic childhood that was marred by his parents' divorce, extreme poverty and his mother's hopeless struggle with tuberculosis. His father turned his back on his children and contributed nothing to their care. When his mother died in 1903, the grief-stricken 10-year-old was forced to care for his younger brother. Without proper food, clothing, shelter or medical care, both boys eventually contracted tuberculosis, and in 1911, when Yukikazu was 18, his brother passed away. Determined to defeat the illness that had robbed him of his family, he studied the work of Dr. Sagan Ishizuka, who was so revered for his healing wisdom that at his death, the funeral procession was 2 miles long. The doctor had studied the human body's ratio of sodium to potassium and magnesium to calcium. He noted that these pairs of opposing elements coexisted in a relationship of complementary antagonism, mirroring the ancient concept of yin and yang. Ishizuka selected a simple diet of natural foods that would maintain the ideal ratios of these complementary chemical elements in patients who were coping with acute illness. It was a strict diet of brown rice, vegetables, sea salt and oil. Yuki Kazu eagerly tried the diet in 1912 and completely recovered from tuberculosis. He was so impressed by the doctor's theories that in 1916 he joined Shoku Yokai, an organization that promoted Ishizuka's work.
It really became his quest and his mission to study food, study lifestyle, study traditional Japanese medicine.
Yuki Kazu tried different trades, but eventually returned to Shoku Yokai to publish a magazine. Intent on teaching his philosophy, he travelled to Paris in 1929 via the Trans-Siberian Railway. While in France, he studied at the Sorbonne and also taught them acupuncture, Eastern medicine, flower arranging and judo. He also continued to write, adopting various pen names before finally settling on George Osawa. While in Europe, he became acquainted with a descendant of Huffelands and immediately resonated with the material in the 18th century doctor's book, which had many similarities to his own philosophy.
So when he saw this book named Macrobiotica, and he saw that thinking, a light bulb went off and he went, that's what it is. And so he named this movement, this way of exploring life, macrobiotics.
Osawa returned to Japan in about 1932 and began to teach his own philosophy, which blended the ideas advanced by Doctors Ishizuka and Huffeland with some fundamental concepts of Japanese folk medicine. An outspoken pacifist throughout World War II, Osawa taught that eating a balanced diet helps human beings achieve balance and harmony in their relationships. Osawa's biting criticism of Japan's military leaders did nothing to endear him to those in political power. Soon after his 1944 prediction that Japan would be defeated, he was thrown in jail, tortured for 3 months, and then abruptly released. He immediately organized a coup d'etat, but was apprehended, jailed, and sentenced to death. He narrowly escaped execution when General MacArthur ordered his release in September of 1945, a month after Japan's surrender to the Allied forces. For the next 15 years, Osawa continued to write, teach and travel, urging world leaders to help unite East and West. However, it wasn't until 1959 that, at the age of 66, he began to teach in the United States. Often, students new to macrobiotic philosophy would read Osawa's early books and blanch because they thought they could eat nothing but brown rice.
George Osawa called it his number 7 diet, the highest diet. People misinterpreted that and thought that that's all you could eat.
Gradually, Osawa's teachings evolved into the health maintenance system that came to be known as macrobiotics, encompassing a unique diet and lifestyle. He was eager to adapt his ideas for industrialized nations in the West, and in 1949, macrobiotics arrived in America, compliments of a Columbia University transfer student who hailed from Tokyo.
If we are what we eat, could what we eat create a more peaceful world?
It really made an impact in my treatment.